Hey everyone, welcome back to CyberSecurityTV. So a couple of weeks ago we started talking about the Tails operating system and how to use it, how to flash it, and how to run every time when you want to be private and anonymous. And surprisingly, a lot of people have tried this already. I've seen a lot of comments. I've got a lot of feedback on the Facebook groups as well, that they've been using it and they're loving it because everything they do on from the Tails is private and anonymous. If you haven't tried that, please do so. It's very efficient and very quick and easy solution. Now, but the question that I've got asked by many people is, if they want to persist some data, if they want to store something data, how do they do it, and whether it's good or bad? Is there, like, what's the advantage versus disadvantages, and etc. So that's what I'm going to answer in this video, because I'm sure if you are going to use this on a regular basis, you want to persist some document, some data in your operating system, rather than starting from scratch. So that's what we are going to discuss in this video. Please hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get into this. So Tails, as we know, when you boot, it's a live and amnesic system, so it doesn't store anything. It just boots up from the USB. It never uses or touches any of the computer storage. Now the advantage of this is it's going to be complete private and very much secure, because there is no risk of confidentiality, integrity of the data that you probably browse or you store on the operating system, or the while you are surfing, etc. However, the biggest disadvantage, as I said, you cannot store anything, right? And if you cannot store anything, let's say you are doing some research, you are accessing some dark web, you are trying out some exploit, and you have used bunch of tools and scripts, and you have installed on the Tails operating system, and that now next time, let's say you are done for the work, and tomorrow if you want to continue your research, and now you are stuck, because or probably you would just waste your time if you have to reinstall everything that you have done already. And that's tedious, right? As an ethical hacker or as a security researcher, you don't want to spend your time on just installing and reinstalling the tools all the time. So that's why we are going to talk about what's the best way to use the Tails if you want to persist some data. Currently, it only uses the RAM, which is random access memory. It doesn't use the computer storage or any of the storage space at all. So next thing we're gonna use is there is a feature in Tails where you can set up the persistent volume or a module. Here, as it says, specify the files that will be served, save the persistent volume. The selected files will be stored in encrypted partition on this device. So that's my pen drive. But yeah, of course. So let's say I think I told you earlier that you need minimum of 8 gigs of USB flash drive, and whatever the storage space, I think if you're using the bare minimum, I think there is a 1 gig or so which will be left out, and you can create the partition to store any data from your flash from your USB stick. But of course, if you're using a bigger the USB stick, let's say 30 gigs or 50 gigs, then you have the more space to play and store your data. So it's still going to use if after you create this persistent volume, it's still going to use the USB drive as a storage rather than using the computer hard disk or computer storage. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 terabyte or 500 gigs of storage on your system, it's still going to use the USB drive. So that's something you want to remember. Here you will have options of storing whatever you want. So you can once I think you open, you'll see similar folder structure like Windows and Linux, where you have music, you have videos, you have photos and documents kind of folder, which you can persist like personal data. Then you can also persist the bookmarks, network connection, additional software. I think it also lets you persist the password as well. Now as we saw, it allows you to store the files. It doesn't use the computer storage, it only uses USB. One thing which is from the confidentiality perspective, you always want to encrypt the data. That's what we have learned in security, cyber security. That's very basic security control you want to have. Doesn't matter where you're encrypting, whether in transit or at rest, you have to encrypt all the data, even though this data only lies onto your USB stick, which is if it gets hand to someone else, they can easily boot up and they can see all the data that you have stored. So rather having that risk, you always want to make sure you configure it securely. So here, when you're setting it up, it will allow you to create the passphrase and make sure it's it's secure. Make sure you don't use like any easily guessable passphrase like 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? That's, being a hacker, you know what kind of password you need to select. But yeah, select it, so every time when you log on, let's say you're booting up again tomorrow, it will give you a couple of options, whether you want to like boot from the live system or you also want to boot the persisted data that you have. And if you select the later one, then you will be asked to provide the password, which will again protect if let's say your USB is lost or something and someone tries to grab your data, then they won't be because it will require the password. And also they cannot just try to find a backdoor and decrypt the data, because of course the volume is encrypted at all. So those are all the advantages, right? So you can, just to sum up, so you can store all the files, your key files, etc., which is really better because it saves a lot of time if you're working on something regularly. Your settings will be preserved, so whatever the network connection, whatever the proxy settings you have in the browser will all be persisted. Programs and plugins will also persist because I, as a security researcher and hacker, I use a lot of plugins and I don't want to reinstall everything every day. Now, there are two disadvantages. However, if you follow a really good security practice, I think you can you can reduce the risk, to be honest, overall. So first one is, let's say any of the software that you install, download, because it's still an operating system, there's still a browser, you can do whatever you want, you can install whatever you want. It's a Linux system, right? So, but if you were to download any software or plugins which is malicious and you don't know what you're installing, maybe that can compromise your overall privacy or the operating system. So now this is like defeating the purpose of using the tails. So you want to be cautious and you want to make sure what are the plugins and software you're downloading. I think we have gone over those details many times entire through this our all the playlists and all the other videos, that sessions, what software to use and how to use it securely, etc. Second thing is, if you play if you, let's say, have too many plugins installed, you have too many software installed. We have seen previously in one of the, I think, first or second video of the tails, not tails, sorry, the dark web, that there is a way one can fingerprint the system and then they can identify where the traffic is coming from based on the fingerprinted data, and it captures everything. What plugins do you have? What is the size of your screen? Like there are, I think, more than 50 elements which it considers. Now, more programs and systems that you have, that means your system is going to be more unique than other users of Tails. If I'm using Tails with the default settings, and a lot of other people who might be using Tails with the default settings, however, you have customized your options and you have installed so many unique softwares on it and plugins, that means your system will be unique compared to all the other users who are using it. So there are chances that one can detect your system. The risk is really low, to be honest, but still, like, you want to make sure a combination of both of this. You want to install minimal software that you need, and then also only software that you trust. Hopefully this is clear, and this would answer your questions about whether you should persist your data. I personally do. I don't see any issue. Just make sure you have like strong password, and as we said, like, just install the software that you really trust. So if you follow this practice, I think you should be fine. And I do encourage again all of you, if you are doing any research work or any ethical hacking kind of activity, use Tails rather than your local browsers and operating system, because there is no privacy in it, to be very honest. So try it out, let me know how it works. If you have seen any other cool features or tales, if you used it, please do let me know in the comment. I would love to hear about it, and also our community would love to hear about it as well. I think that's it for this week. I'll see you all next week. Bye.